and welcome to The Power of Money. I'm your host, Michelle Graves, affectionately known for 40 years as the Money Lady. And my commitment to those of you who have been my faithful viewers and followers over this timeline is to give you the necessary information, resources, experts when necessary, and make sure you're on a firm footing as you go through these treacherous waters called survival financially. And believe me when I tell you, in the 40 plus years I've been in this industry, and all facets of this industry, from Wall Street all the way right to you as a regular working person, I have never seen anything like this. And when I say like this, I am telling you, we are entering economic times that are going to make your hair fall off. Braids included. It's rough. So I'm even more deeply committed to going deep on things that you may never have considered or thought about. You're feeling the pain, but you don't know where it's coming from and why. Now, for those of you that have been followers of The Power of Money over the years, you know that I've always been ahead of the curve. Maybe it's because of my background as an economist, international economist. So I'm always looking at what's going on all over the world and how you are impacted. And many of you just point blank don't like me. That's not possible. You don't like what I'm telling you. And I'm telling you so that you can prepare. When I talked about inflation, go back, go to YouTube. All the back episodes are on YouTube. When I talked about inflation, what it was, and I said, hold your horses because it's coming. That was almost 4 years ago. And sadly, many of my viewers did not take heed and listen. Why? Because it didn't hurt you yet. But now we see inflation is a bear, and it does not go away. It's caused 2 world wars, by the way, World War I and World War II. It also created the foundation for the American Revolution because the King of England wanted to charge tax on tea, if you can believe that tea was that pricey back then. Unbelievable. But the American people said, oh no, taxation without representation, nah, you're killing us with this tea thing. And we went to war against Mother England. And despite all of the brutality, we won that war, and it laid the foundation for the country and the democracy we live today. Pays to know your history so you will not be surprised when you see the direction of where things go. Inflation is not something you want going on because it's like Marie Antoinette telling the people of France, the poor people of France, let them eat cheese. And when they finished with her and her husband and all the wealthy class in France, France was a different country, minus a lot of headless people, I might add. So there are consequences historically to this. Germany went to war twice over this thing because they couldn't get on their feet. Why? Because inflation was killing them. What is it? Well, you go to the store in the morning and the bread is 25 cents, and then you go back in the afternoon and the bread is $5. I'm just giving you an extreme example, although that did happen in Germany. The people could not get stable because the economy was unstable and decimating the working people. That is a historical economic fact. Had to learn it in grad school. And I'm just telling you, here we are now. And in talking about inflation and food, etc., we have to talk openly and go deep into what is going on with our senior population, specifically our elderly population. And I'm going to take a deep dive. I'm doing 4 segments on this subject, caring for our seniors. Now, within the senior population, of which I am a happy member, 73, I am a senior. But there are other seniors that are my age that are not doing well at all. And there are those who move into another class. When you turn 80, you're considered elderly. Why? Because you're more fragile. You have other issues that come to the table. And we have to face this. Several years, maybe 5 years ago, you can go back on YouTube, I did a town hall on aging. And I brought in experts, including Ray Copenhaver, who was a phenomenal man in terms of the industry. But we talked openly about what was coming, these trends, the cost of care. If you have parents, I don't have to tell you. You're going through it if you love your parents. Why? Because you are seeing changes in their behavior, perhaps in their health, and what you're looking at with them. Perhaps you're observing memory issues with things they don't seem to recall. And as I'm quick to tell people, it's like a computer. The hard drive is full. Unfortunately, with humans, you can't transplant or buy a new hard drive known as a brain. You can't do that. They can replicate, but when a brain stops functioning efficiently, typically it's not recoverable. So these are some of the observations you can begin to make and still not come up with, what am I going to do? Mom can't remember anything. Well, if you've had 80 years of accumulation, you may not remember much either. Okay, may I be just open with you? The brain can only absorb so much. It can reset sometimes. It can recharge with proper supplements. But aging is what it is. And if you live long enough, you will become a part of those ranks. And if you're not careful, you will not age with grace. You will age and make your family members wish you just disappeared somewhere, anywhere, because it can be very, very difficult and painful to maneuver. So I determined, after much careful thought, and I do mean careful thought, to deep dive into how are we going to care for this rapidly aging senior population. Now, please be aware that the demographics of aging are all over the place. The states that have the most seniors that are in this category are, and they're not necessarily in this order, but you get what I'm saying. The state of Ohio is right up there with 1, 2, or 3. It's not number 1. I think number 1 is New York, which is a huge population. And then you have North Carolina, which is under Ohio. Then you have Ohio, and you also have the Carolinas. You also have seniors that are, in mundane places, but they are there. And they're not going. Of course, I could not have this show without saying Florida has a ton of seniors, and we call them snowbirds who never went back home. The weather is lovely down there. I'm not going to lie. My son lives in Tampa, and he's not budging. Despite the flooding, despite everything else, he said there's nothing to compare with the beauty of looking at the ocean and the quality of life. But Florida is packed with seniors who went there for the same reason. They wanted a better quality of life. They didn't want to deal with the hubbub of living in the north and the terribly cold winters, particularly when you're older, your bones begin to hurt and to ache. And boy, oh boy, even if it's a double wide, you have access to warm weather, you have access to beautiful water, you have access to people that look like you and are not all gung-ho about being young and frisky. I should maybe correct the frisky part, because there are some senior facilities down there that are a little bit too frisky, okay? But again, I'm not one to judge, and if it makes you happy and you're 80, then just be happy. Your family's too far away to care, and at a core level, you all know that many of them really don't care. But this particular show is geared toward those who do care and want to see a proper response to their parents and their aging process, which is not going to change. As we age, certain things will begin to shift. And it's not like we have an alternator in a car. You can't go out and change out stuff just cause. Because sometimes it can't be done, sometimes it doesn't work well. So, without a whole lot of fanfare, why? Well, for starters, the reality is there is a huge demand. Most of us recognize fairly early on that our parents are changing. And a wise response is to look at what is happening with your parents. And if you have a family unit with more than you, perhaps this is the time to have an open conversation about mom and dad. Now, I'm talking deeper than the progressive advertisers, which is the older you get, the more you become like your parents. Well, your DNA is responsible for that. I don't touch that. That's a God thing. But we do become more and more like our parents as we age. The difference is, coming from that generation, they were fiercely independent. They had to go through a lot of things, and they weren't too far off from the immigrant situation. Many came over here to get away from the oppression of Europe, which, Europe, right. If you were born poor in England, that was just the way you were going to die. A pauper in poor people's prison, out on the street, prostituting, doing whatever. England was not all that. And people were trying to get the heck out of there. Anyway, they were trying to get away from there to America, which offered them the possibility as a democracy, not a monarchy. We don't have kings over here, remember? The Revolutionary War, we don't do that. People came over here for a fresh start without prejudice. And again, people came from many, many countries in Europe. So you're dealing with people that had to struggle. And then they went through the Great Depression, need I say. And before the Great Depression, we had to go World War I. Yep, it's been a struggle. And so don't be lightweight when they're not real flexible about what they do and why they do it. Their primary goal was to be able to put food in their belly and have a decent livelihood first, and then think about family and other things second. So this is the culture of this aging group. They're feisty, they don't budge. They will sit like a rock and look at you. So when you have the conversation about mom and dad, or mom as a widow or dad as a widower, and you realize that things are changing, What is your typical response? And unfortunately, like I said, for most family members who are younger siblings, it's panic. Like, oh, shoot, what am I going to do? Jill's in California, Bill's in Detroit, I'm down here in Southern Ohio, my other brother's in New York. What are we going to do about this? They're going to burn themselves up in their house. Possibility. I was in a situation where the man 2 doors down from my parents, in fact, did burn himself up. He fell asleep smoking a cigarette in his basement. And the rest is history. And frankly, I was at my parents' house spending the night, which I did a lot. And all of a sudden, I looked over, and that house was on fire. And by the time the police got to the home, he was dead. Smoke inhalation. Thank God he didn't have to experience fire. But he was dead from that. And it was very, very troubling for my parents. They're like, oh my God, he's burned up. And I'm like, where are his kids? Well, it turns out his kids were nowhere to be found. And it was a very sorrowful experience, but it awakened me to things that we need to be aware of. And I looked at my parents, and I looked at 2 people that I love, present tense, dearly, love them. But things were changing because they were now in their 80s, and things were not looking good. She burned up food all the time. I didn't care about the burn up food, but it was the fact that they were using ovens and burners, which was a no-no. You cannot have a pot on fire, okay, and be somewhere else. And then the pot will inflame, and then you will have a kitchen fire, which can become a whole house fire. So decisions had to be made, and it was not good. Why? Because they come out of a generation that's used to resisting change. They are survivalists. Long before the preppers, you have a generation of elderly people that are used to growing their food, that are used to living on very little, as well as very little money, because the true wealth was not in their generation, but in my generation, which is the baby boomers, because our parents sacrificed so that we could have a quality of life and a standard of life that was unequaled in this country right now. Although, again, that's changing, viewers. Why? Because my generation, because of total disregard for health and everything else until too late, and so cancer is gone crazy, as well as other chronic conditions from that truly lack of self-care. And I'll tell you, our parents didn't have that because they ate food that they cooked. They weren't into eating out and eating strange food and doing odd things. They were basic, which is I will eat a pork roast. I will eat some potatoes, my potatoes that I grew. I'm eating green beans, my green beans that I grew. That was their mindset. So no, they died from old age, but they didn't die from all the plethora of diseases that are part of the baby boomer generation, and younger, and younger. So we got the money, but we don't have a quality of life because it's too late. I mean, by the time you figure it out, you've got 6 months and you're gone. That just seems so unfair when you got parents. But that's another topic. Why are we having this conversation? Because this conversation is upon us. The number of people in my generation that are moving into the realm of needing permanent care. They can't take care of themselves any longer. God bless you if you've got parents that are in their 80s and 90s who are able to take care of themselves, who are able to drive, who are able to go on trips, vacations, etc. God bless you, because the data does not say that at all. Things do begin to change. Now, you need to know if we are in agreement about our parents, then what does that look like? And let me just give you some numbers. And yes, I've got glasses on, my reading glasses, as everybody my age should. But let's talk about what services you would want for your parents and what the national median values are. And I take this entire information from a website that you would find valuable to go and look at yourself. It's called carescout.com. They are providers of care. They work in cooperation with a major care company, insurance, called Genworth. But the data is absolutely amazing that they provide. Again, it's called carescout.com. And I'm going to be taking a lot of my data from this, because this resource was truly the best that I bumped into. So I wanted to pass it on. And it's on my computer, but I can refer you to it. You can read it at your leisure. Please take your time, because the data is compelling as well as shocking. But I can tell you as a truth, it's no exaggeration, because I'm living through it right now with my parents. Okay? And it is tough. Do not think for 1 minute it's not tough. Why? Because, like I told you, culturally, they're strong. They're not budging. And they don't like change, and they don't like their children telling them what to do. Keep that in mind as you deal with them. If one of your brothers or sisters is a type A and super aggressive, don't bring them to the family meeting. Let them listen in on the phone or do a Zoom, because all it's going to do, your parents really do know you. Whether you believe it or not, they know each of their children. And Bill was always a problem. Okay, and now that they're older and you're talking about life changes like the why, Bill may not be the best person to have to contribute, because it does not necessarily work that way. But let's talk about how costs have changed, because the first thing you want to look at under the whys is, I told you why. Why do you need to deal with this issue? Because it is epidemic and going to get worse. 2 out of every 3 people in this country will be adversely impacted. What that means is that you're going to have to do something. You cannot sit around and talk about it. That's why I'm suggesting a family gathering, a family meeting. It's more than hamburgers and hot dogs. I'm just telling you. So let's talk about costs, because you need to know this. And these are actual costs for a homemaker's service. That's for someone to clean and take care of their well-being. Okay? It may or may not include bathing them, but it could. It may or may not include dispensing medications. In fact, do you know what medications they even take? Really? I'm involved with Medicare, and I am astounded at the number of drugs that our seniors are taking for all kinds of conditions. And many of them cannot be combined together. But because they're dealing with different and multiple doctors, one hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing, and it can get messy. If that is your situation, I'm going to suggest to you immediately, first find out what kind of Medicare plan they have. Secondly, look for a gerontologist, which is a doctor who is trained on working with the elderly. That's their specialty. And have them do a medical evaluation of your parents and all those drugs they're taking. They're not supposed to be taking 3 and 4 different drugs for diabetes or for chronic health. I've sat in front of people that have 24 containers of drugs. And when I talked to the family and told them to get a gerontologist involved, he or she eliminated most of those drugs. They were just getting them refilled every time they were empty for years. But this is just one of the things you're going to be looking at, because you're going to have to get involved. Somebody, a point person among the siblings, is going to have to take the lead on that. And know, for the record, this is not a come to Jesus conversation. If your parents are taking medications that are ill-suited, that has to stop, and stop immediately, unless you plan on making funeral arrangements for your parents. This is that serious. But back to the subject at hand, the type of service and what it costs. For homemaker services on an hourly basis, 2024 national median values, $33 an hour. That's what you're going to be paying someone to do homemaker services. In 2023, it was 30. So it's gone up 10% in just 1 year. And that number is going to go higher. Why? Because there is a tremendous demand for people that offer good comprehensive services. And you're going to have to pay to get somebody good. And preferably somebodies, plural. Why? Because that person is not going to want to be with your parents 24 hours a day. So maybe you can swing shift 4 hours in the morning and swing shift 4 hours in the evening before they go to bed. And then you all fill in the middle. Okay? And your parents would probably say, "We didn't see you this much when we were young." They're probably right, because you was living that life. But now you're going to have to work out a plan. But $33 an hour is where we are today, and heading up. I project that it's going to go as high as 50. If nursing homes cannot keep good staff, private pay, you got to be offering something really good. Okay, other than I love my mom and I really trust you. Okay, what is the hourly rate for a home health aide? $34 an hour. That's more than homemaker services. Why? Because they have to dispense medications. And that is an additional certification requirement. That has not gone up significantly. Last year it was $33 in 2023, 3%. A new thing that's on the horizon, and it's very encouraging if you can find an excellent facility, is your adult daycare. And these are facilities that offer all kinds of activities. You drive them to the facility. They have activities. They go on different site visits to keep them stimulated, etc. Now, these facilities are $100 daily. That's what they are today. But mind you, they get their meals there. They typically have nurses on staff. And so but you have to take care of them. They have to stay with you in your home. They may be still at their home, but somebody better be keeping an eye on that. Last year it was $95. Now it's up to $100. Do I expect it to go higher? Yes, I do. Why? Because it's convenient. Why? Because a lot of adults are taking care of their parents and still have to work and still have to deal with other things in the household. Okay? But this is a possibility to look at. I'm just giving you price points. If you want to consider them going into an assisted living community, and we've heard a lot about assisted living, if you can afford it, it's not a bad way to go. Literally, it's an apartment. Only they have certain services that are automatically there. They have a doctor on staff. They have a nurse typically on staff. If something goes awry, you got help right there. They also have a social network, which is kind of touch and go. The women seem to do better than the men, and I think that's because men have not developed the networking and the relationships that women have had to deal raising children, PTA, church, garden club, all those kind of things. So with an assisted living, it is an apartment. Many times you share your dining room with all the other residents, but those rates are on a monthly basis. This past year, $5,900 a month. And before you say, whoa, oh my God, yeah. You're giving them a place to live. You're providing them with care and with doctor-nurse support. Last year, it was slightly lower, $5,350, went up 10%, and I project it's going to go up even more because if you got to have them move from their home and you want them in a safe environment with all these benefits, you have to pay for it. So the question is, how can they afford it? Well, they afford it the way you afford any other bill. Most of their homes are paid for, so they have to sell the home. They have to take the proceeds and use them to bank for their assisted living. Now, there are different kinds of facilities for assisted living, and you will learn that as you begin to go out here and do your research. There are excellent magazines that are out here today, and you can go on internet, Google, and learn about assisted living versus semi-private versus fully nursing home. A person that lives in assisted living, I mean, there are some fabulous assisted living facilities. I'm not kidding you. Fabulous. But don't let the fabulous take you to another place. You're not there for fabulous. You're there for safety and functionality. You want your parents, married, widowed, widower, to be in an environment where they can have socialization, where they can do things, go places, and where they still maintain a large part of their independence. If you can imagine a person that's lived in the same home for 50 years, had their children, neighbors, all the above, and now you are saying, I want you in a facility where they can keep an eye on you and your care. You'll still be independent somewhat, but your safety in your care is paramount to us, Mom. Okay, we don't want you falling, Mom, with your scatter rugs all over the house, Mom. We want you in a place that's clean, that is furnished for the most part, and you're allowed to bring some of your items, and actually some people have a lot. But this is a change, and with a change, you're going to have some pushback, okay? Now, let's go to the most costly things you're looking at. To go to a semi-private nursing home room, that's a shared room with someone else, is in today's dollars, nationally, this is an average. There's some higher, there's some lower. but it's $9,277 a month. Yeah. Get up off the floor now and regroup, because this is important. Last year for a semi-private, it was $8,669. Now here we go with these challenges, because a lot of elderly do not want a roommate. And before you say, but why not? Do you have a roommate at 80 that you don't know anything about? And you have to sleep with that person every night? That's significant. And the issue is, who's paying for it? Because if a person is on Medicaid, which is federal, state, health care assistance, not Medicare, Medicaid is for poor people who need custodial care and need to be in a safe environment. Medicare will not put you in a private room. It's a shared environment. So how do they adjust? Well, I don't know. But I do know for myself that's got to be tough, to go from a home where you were somewhat independent, or you may do wacky things, but it was your space, to a place that is, in many cases, institutional in appearance and bland. Now, I have been at one facility where they did have a large garden where people with memory care issues gardened. They let them get out and get dirty and work with their plants. And that was marvelous, but it was much more expensive than this. Okay? And the final category is nursing home private room. And that will cost you $24, $10,646 for a private room. Who would not like a private room? But again, the issue is, who's paying for this private room? And we're going to be talking about this as we go deeper, because as you can clearly see, and if you go onto the website, you can see even better. Under, let me put my glasses on again, carescout.com. The most remarkable site I've been to yet. And I've been in this industry for 40 years. This was good stuff, because it put all of it in perspective. The key thing is, how's it going to get paid for? And are they going to run out of money? Now, there are some facilities that will allow you to come in assisted living, and as your circumstances progress, then you will find that bill gets more expensive. But you do need to be aware so that you can prepare and determine who's going to pay these bills. Because after your parents sell their home, and no matter how much they sell it for, it's not going to be enough if you do the math. If him and her are moving into an assisted living environment, and you look at both of their fees for caring for both of them, you're looking at, for a combined, 10 grand. And if they sold the home and they made 200 grand, that will give them 20 months, which is not even 2 years, in that environment, assuming things don't deteriorate. So what is their backup? Well, they may liquidate stocks, they may liquidate assets, and that has limited. And that's assuming their health does not deteriorate. That is major, okay? Major. Because as you age, things will occur. And you may not be able to stay in an assisted living. They may want to move you into more specialized care, which can only be done in a nursing home. Okay? Unless you're going to volunteer to move them into your home, which many people are forced to do, not because they are thrilled, but because the finances don't support it. So the parents sell the home, the proceeds go to facilitate their care with your sister or your brother, because they can't afford to give them 24-hour no-help caregiving. It's better to pay $34 an hour, have a nurse come in, administer medications, and leave. But then the burden is on you. That's to clean them, to cook for them, to attend to them, and you've got other things you're trying to do. You got kids, you got obligations. It's not a pretty scenario, which is why I'm presenting it to you, so that you can begin to do the evaluation that is going to be necessary. When I looked at all these numbers in context, and let me tell you something, I have been through this, okay, personally, with my parents. And I am sorry. It is what it is. They were very stable Christian couple. I handled their investments, but they were not interested in long-term care because they never thought it would happen to them. I will tell anybody that's talking about taking care of your parents full-time because of a cultural obligation. There are some cultural obligations in different communities. In the African American community, it is considered bad if you don't take care of your parents. Well, let me just say time out on that one, because anybody that judges you for not being able to take care of your parents needs their head washed out. Let me share with you briefly, in the remaining time I have for this segment of the series I'm doing on caring for your seniors, because it's major. And they're all wandering around. You see them on the interstate trying to maneuver with their cars, and they're getting run over because all these young people that have been watching, video games for years, and they think the interstate is a drag race. And the poor senior is trying, I'm telling them, why are you on the interstate? Why are you not taking back roads? Why are you not? Because I shouldn't have to change because of those little whippersnappers. Well, those little whippersnappers have no insurance on their vehicle. They drive too fast, and you don't know what their life story is. And you're coming out there like Mary Sunshine or Mr. Magoo, and you're like, I don't get it. Get off the road. Get that. Or better still, pray that someone has the vision, if not you, to just not drive at all. Oh, but my freedom. But there is a price you're going to pay for your freedom at a certain age. And again, I admonish those of you that say, I'm going to take care of my mother. I am not going to have her in that situation. And the first thing I'm going to say to you is, have you seen a therapist to begin to look at the things that you're going to be confronting while taking care of this adult who is your parent and does not see a shift in roles? They do not see you ever becoming like them, and certainly not attending to their needs in a responsible way. As I was told, well, we take care of each other. We're not looking for you to do anything. Yeah, until your mother is up the street at night wandering, and you're asleep like a horse. Well, the difference is you slept like a horse always, but she did not want to do nightly exercise. She slept with you. Things have changed. Now you got to worry about her. And if you've got them in your home, now you've got to worry about them. And this is not on a once in a, this is daily. Are you prepared to do a caregiver role? Are you prepared to not just cook and clean? If you live with them, you know you got to clean. Are you prepared to give them their baths? Oh yeah, don't talk about your back when you're bending down on the tub. Are you prepared to dry them out, to oil them up, to administer their medications, and to get them dressed so that they can have breakfast at 8:30? Well, I'm trying to get, I'm just asking the question. Is your time worth $34 an hour? That's the cost of paying somebody else. Working on 44 hours per week, 52 weeks, $34. That is the national hourly cost for a home health aide in 2024. And that includes, hear me out before you start playing the poor is me victim role, because you're going to pay for this one. Okay? It's a statistical fact that caregivers predecease their parents. Yeah. You're gone. They're still here. But let's talk about when you need help. If you choose to have them in the house, $34 an hour, you should build that into your budget. That in-home care includes home health aides. And who will provide hands-on personal assistance. That is tough work. Have you ever tried to lift a grown man up to change him? Or a grown woman up to get her to the bathroom to avoid UTI? Oh, you didn't know that. Yeah, if she can't get to the bathroom, you better get her to the bathroom. And sometimes that's not with cooperation. Okay? So your aides, which are $34 an hour based on 2024, they provide the hands-on personal assistance and homemaker services. They will do hands-off work, tasks such as cooking and cleaning. Geez. And it goes on to say that while home health care aid costs rose just 3% in 2024, homemaker services rose 10%. 2/3 of home care agencies surveyed now charge the same rate for both types of services. Again, one has to deal with cleaning, etc., and one has to deal with personal assistance. $34 an hour based on 44 hours per week by 52 weeks. That's what it averaged out to. Now, before you say to me, I can do this myself, you don't do it for yourself. That'd be simple. You don't do this stuff for you. Cooking, cleaning. Optional versus mandatory are two things. When people live with you, it's not optional about feeding them. They're hungry. They need nutrition. They don't need fast food. That's for your grandkids. Your parents need a meal because that's what they're accustomed to. Do you have people that cook in your church? Maybe you can pay them to fix a bunch of meals, put them in Tupperware and freeze them, and thaw them out and feed them. But don't dismiss the requirements of caregiving. I had a situation, this is an anecdote, but it's the truth. It happened to me. There was a robust German woman in the memory care facility that my mother was in. Her name was Greta. And Greta was not a joke. She would whack you. Yes, she would. Hate to think what her kids were like. But she would whack the other residents. Well, one day she whacked my mother. And you know what? My mother whacked her back. Bam! And then I told Greta, if you touch my mother again, you're going to be out of here. Well, her son and daughter came in to visit. It was challenging. It was not friendly because they wanted to sue the nursing home for my mother whacking her back. And I told them, Greta is outrageous. And I would suggest that you remove her before she is removed in another way. Now, the children looked at me in an absolute, what? Our mother, I said, yes, she did. Your mother had been whacking people for a long time. She just not going to whack my mother. Right. So, without further ado, there was an investigation. The state was even called in to prove the point. And the bottom line is Greta had to move because Greta was causing disruption. Can you imagine Greta living with her son or daughter? In fact, I feel that's why she was there, because she was probably tearing up and rebuilding everything in their home. I'm laughing, but it's with sorrow and sympathy because people get involved with situations without understanding what is really the situation. The why. Why has this industry boomed? Why has caring for seniors and your family members that are aging become such a real problem? And I'm here to tell you, with inflation, prices are going up because food prices, you got to feed them, you got to bed them, you got to hire staff, and that industry's hard to keep people. Why? Because the work is hard, and it's mostly women. And there's only so many bodies you can lift up in a day before you're ready to pass out and ask somebody to lift you up. I'm telling you because I'm there, boots on the ground. Yeah, I am. Every Sunday, I'm there. Go to church, spend the balance of the day in that environment with my mom. So when I tell you nobody's playing here, and it took us 10 years. That's correct, 10 years. 10 years. So, in conclusion on today's Power of Money deep dive into caring for seniors, today's subject matter was why. And I've already told you, epidemic, they don't die. They just are chronic. They need care. You need to look at this, look at your own family, look at who can do it, and be prepared to pay. The family can raise money and pay if they can. Don't be the one that wounds up in a mess because it's too much pressure. And then again, the cultural conversation. Well, you're supposed to do this because the Bible says, honor your father and your mother, that the days of your life will be long. I totally agree. Honor them. Do what is right. Okay? Honoring people is not taking care of people that you're not equipped to take care of. That is dishonor. And might I add, highly disrespectful. Highly. They know that you don't want them there. They're not stupid. They're just sick. And by the way, keep living. I've had situations happen to me. That's why I'm wearing glasses now, because my eyes have gone bad. Part of aging runs in my family. DNA, can't do anything about it. Great-grandmother, grandmother dead, now me, firstborn. I don't see well. I don't put myself in bad situations. I do not night drive. I don't care who it is. I also limp. Why? From wearing 5-inch spike heels for most of my adult executive life. Guess what? I don't do that anymore either. Just a part of recognizing these things. And at some point, I'm going to have to deal with that. I don't want to, but I'm just putting it out for you all's benefit so that you can begin to become aware of you and your situation and your parents or loved ones, because this is personal and it is painful, even when you plan it out. It is painful. And on that note, I'm signing off on today's Power of Money. I'm your host, Michelle Graves, known nationally as the Money Lady. You can go to my website, michellegravesonline.com. Whatever questions you have, please, I'd love to be able to entertain them, and perhaps I can give you some insight or some resources. Become familiar with your aging resources in your communities. Council on Aging, those kinds of resources that have been there, know what you're dealing with, and can offer some assistance. Take care of yourself. We'll talk soon. God bless. Bye-bye.